Hello again. Email Designer is such a powerful tool for crafting emails that display well across email clients. I use the Email Designer every week to make the Coffee Cup newsletters and invoices. So today I'm going to demonstrate how the app works and show you a bit of my personal workflow. So let's get started. Under the layout section, you can configure your grid size. I typically use 720 pixels wide because not many email clients are much larger than that. With a grid size first breakpoint also starting at 720, meaning that anything that's larger than that 720 would be to the right of that first breakpoint. That red dot up at the top is serving as the breakpoint when a layout or style change would take place. I'm going to go ahead and select that first row that's in there by default. And over on the design pane, start by adding a class. This way it can be identified within the markup, keeps everything nice and clean. I'm going to name this class Logo Row. And under the background, I'm going to set it as the nice coffee cup blue that we use in all of our newsletters. Because this is a full width row, the background color that's applied will span the entire width of that row. Next, under the content, I'm going to go ahead and add in an image element so I can pop in my logo. By selecting this little circle arrows, it'll automatically open up the resources where you can add images to your project. This will pull them in locally. With the image in place under the design pane, you can add different styles. I'm going to, as always, add in a class. So here I'm going to put logo. I'm going to give it an alt name, coffee cup, in case the image doesn't load for the viewer. And pop in a link. So if clicked, the user will be taken over to the website. All right, my logo row is done. So the next step, I'm going to go back over to the layout pane. And I'm going to add another full width row. Clicking the plus arrow will add another row to the canvas. Then under the content pane, I'm going to drag in another image element. I can always click that circles to add in, or if you go to the design pane under source, under the design pane, first, I'm going to enter my type class while I'm here, but under source, you can select local image to import it. Alternatively, you could also use an online link if you have a graphic up on your own server. Again, it's always good practice to add in an alt name just in case the user has images turned off. To make that image wide, under the dimensions section, I'm going to change the max width to none. This way it opens up as its full size. Now to add some style, I'm going to select the row. You can hover over any image or any element on that and use the drop down to select the row or column you want to style. In this case, I'm going to select the row, give it a type class, and I think maybe I'll try using the color picker to match one of the blues in my graphic. What's nice about the email designer is that you can easily modify your decisions. Maybe I'll just go with the solid blue for now. If you drag and drop any of the colors into your color palette, it will save, so you can always reuse them at any other point in your project. Next, under the layout, I'm going to go ahead and add another row. But first, let's go ahead and style the body a bit. So I'm going to select the body. You'll notice in the top it'll say body that I'm styling. And I'm going to change the apply styles to type. This way it's just the default style for the background. And I think I'm going to do this light blue. This light blue color from the image. And this time I'm going to add a constrained row. This way the background color still is that blue, but the row itself is going to take on a white color. I'm going to say all rows of this type, the constrained, will be white. Then I'm going to pop in some content. So a nice heading element here. You can either click on the element or drag and drop at any point. I'm going to give that heading a type class of greeting and go ahead and apply my typography styles. Since the font is not a web-safe font, I am going to apply a fallback. Give it some coloring. Now that column seems a little tight. So if I select the column, give it a class name, I'm going to space it out. I'm going to add 40 pixels of top and bottom space and 65 pixels left and right. This way the item has some room to breathe. Double clicking on any text element on the canvas is going to open up the text edit mode, so you can change out the placeholder information. Going to add in a couple more paragraphs. Now, components are really helpful. There are some pre-built items that are already configured in the component library that you can just select and add into your project and customize. If you build stuff commonly that you want to reuse, like headers, footers, special features, you can always save them to your library. This way you don't have to rebuild them with each new project. In this particular case, I do have special buttons that are already styled the way that I like them for our company branding that I've already saved to my library. Let me zoom this up a little bit. My double action buttons. So if I add it to the project, I can select where I want it to be on there and just click Insert to Canvas, and my my action buttons will just pop right into place. This is pretty nice because that's the same style that we like to use commonly. I'm going to show you one other component option. Here is a quote block that is used throughout our coffee cup campaigns, which uses a full width row, and then it's just a text element. Some styling may be off because it just kind of depends on how it was originally crafted before it was added to my component library. You can see that extra breakpoints for style changes automatically appear Again, that's because it's tied to the element when it was saved to the component library. You can always use the slider and see, if it's really needed, if there's actually a style change that's being made. If not, you can use that minus arrow to delete it. While I'm here, I'm going to fix this quote just a little bit. Now on this text element, there is a border, but it's actually just applied to the text element itself. If you click that circle, you can choose what border you want to modify, and you can see it's got 3 pixels of a white border to give it that little bit of flair. See, our email's coming along, but looking at it now, I think I want to change that body color. So I'm going to select the type of the body, and I'm going to change it to the coffee cup blue as the background. I think that looks a lot more stylish. And while I'm here, that top row, the intro row, let's go ahead and make it the lighter color. Again, it's so easy to make these quick style changes on the fly. Next, I'm going to add another full width row. This full width row I'm going to make as a secondary section. I'll just name it secondary message. And I want it to be radically different. I want to make it dark color. But this time, instead of just a plain flat color, I'm going to use a background image. So I'm going to pull it in from my resources, which means adding it locally from my computer. Now, if the background image doesn't load for the end user, they'll still be served that dark gray. Now over on the content pane under elements, I'm going to add in another header element and some more content for this particular message. As always, I'm going to give it a class. Classes help keep common items in sync. So if you're ever changing their color or their font type or spacing, it's always very handy. While I'm here, let's go ahead and fix that column. So selecting the column either on the drop down or using the inspector pane, you can select the item that you want to modify. I'm going to choose that main column that we've already configured previously, and it will automatically add that spacing around the elements. Okay, so back to the content. I'm going to add in a paragraph element, maybe 2. Now, I'm going to show you the benefit of using the classes. So for the first paragraph, I'm going to give it the type class secondary P for secondary paragraph. I'm so creative, I know. And I'm going to give it a white color so that there's some contrast. Now, if I select that second paragraph and just give it that same class name, it'll automatically take on those styles. However, as you can see, the paragraphs up top and below are pretty small. They're also the wrong font type. So if I select one of the paragraphs and change the apply styles to type, this allows me to change the default for them all. I can set the font as as the Roboto font and a fallback, and it will change all of them within the project. I can also increase their font. Basically anything that you apply on the styles pane, it would be applied as the default. A class is only used when it's a variation, like as you see with the white paragraph at the bottom. I'm going to add another image to this section. by dragging and dropping the element. Add in a cool video graphic. Pretty cool. Our email is coming right along. Next thing I'm going to demonstrate is the text editor. If you wanted to highlight or basically make some kind of variation within the text itself in line, this is how you do it. So to add in your text, you can either hover over the A or right click and select edit text. I'm going to highlight all of this placeholder and add in my own message here. Now, while the default styles are handled on the design pane, within the text edit mode panel is where you would add select variations. So for example, I want to highlight this big announcement. I want to make it bold so it stands out to the reader. Just by highlighting it and making those changes on the text edit mode, you'll see that just those selected words will be formatted. You can always add a class name too, so if you want to reuse it throughout, if you want to say bold or highlighted, you can give it any kind of class name so that that style can be shared in other places. I'm going to underline it too, just to give you an idea. So now let's say you wanted to add a link to a specific word or group of words. The same method would apply. You would highlight the specific word, but let's go ahead and let me round out our message here a little bit more. So I'm going to highlight the word homepage. That's where I want to take the people to. And by clicking that plus arrow next to the word link, I can configure the link destination where I want it to go. And click apply. I'm going to add a class name of link. This way, if I want to add in any other inline links later, they'll share the same formatting. And there you go. That's how you add in a specific variation within a paragraph element. Now, just kind of going back to the whole class thing, I'm going to show you, I'm going to highlight another word in another paragraph and giving it that link option, that link class name. You'll see that now all the links will always match in formatting. Using classes is huge. I did put a link at the bottom of the video. I did put a link in the comment section. So if you'd like to study up on it a little bit more, I highly recommend it. Next thing I'm going to show is adding a footer to the email. In the component section, I already have a footer configured because again, we use the same one every week. So in my regular workflow, I would just go to components and pop that baby in, saving me from having to reconstruct it every time. But I'm going to just go ahead and build it today so you can see how it works. Again, I'm going to do a full width row so that color spans all the way. Give it a type class of footer row and change that background color to black. I always forget that column. So let's go and select that and give that column, that main column class so that it spaces out. And then I'm ready to add my content. I've got the logo footer select my image and pull it in locally. And I've got a little paragraph message. I'm going to copy and paste it off screen really fast. Here we go. With that paragraph selected, I'm going to give it a type class. Make it white. You'll notice all of the pink lines. That's showing that it's taking the same styles as the default paragraphs that we configured previously. To space it out, I'm going to give it some 20 pixel top padding. Now for social media, on the elements, I'm going to add a social box. It's a quick way of being able to add in the social media buttons to your project. Down below on the social box, I can center it, floating either left or right, but in this case, center. And then you can configure the actual links under the network section. You can change the network type if you want. You can also adjust the icon. So if you have your own special graphics you want to use there, you can import them in or swap them out for something different. In this case, I'm going to change that Google Plus, since that doesn't exist anymore, to YouTube, where you can view all of my special videos. Sorry, I had to plug it. Going down the row, you can adjust margins, padding, spacing, backgrounds. If you wanted to have a background color of behind all of the items, or you can style each social icon individually. In this case, let's go ahead and make them blue and keep them all in line with the color scheme of the email. And it's really just that easy. We have a fully made email. All I would have to do is plug in the content on what I want to say in those paragraphs, and this baby is looking good. Moving the slider past that first breakpoint, I can decide if there's any layout or style changes. In this case, that heading doesn't need to be 40 pixels. I don't need to scream at the audience. So sliding it past the breakpoints, I can change how I want it to look. The main column type class, I'm going to change it from 65 left and right to 40 at the first breakpoint and 20 pixels at the smallest. This way it makes the best use, for those particular screen sizes. And really, you can just tweak for days, just using the slider and seeing what needs to be adjusted for, the particular screen size that it would be viewed at. So with the design lockdown, then I would go up to campaign settings, and already logged in, so let me sign out so I can show you how it works. To connect the app to your account, you'll log in with your coffee cup, email, and password. Once you sign in, you can select which S-Drive slug you want it associated with, and enter a campaign name. So when you export and save it, it'll be saved with that name. And if you want to promote Coffee Cup, you can always use that branded footer. We would appreciate it. Under the settings email section is where you can configure your email information. So if you're sending from Red itself or you're sending a test. In this case, I'm going to use my Gmail account. So I'll log in, and once I enter my information, click on Test Setup. Shows that I successfully set it up, so I'm going to save that profile. Below, I can send it to either a list if I've got a recipient list, or if I want to just send it to an individual email for testing purposes, or maybe to another coworker, or if I'm invoicing, you would enter that in that email there. Put in my subject line and pre-header text. And the email's ready. You can either send the email directly, or if you're going to be sending with an email marketing service like MailChimp, you would just want to click OK. So we send with MailChimp, so I would always use the export feature. And this will prompt you to save the file to your computer. This is going to end up saving the actual HTML file to that location. So the app will do its thing. It's going to configure up all the markup for you. And once it's done brewing it up, you're going to see this success screen where you can either copy the HTML code, get the HTML file, or you can send a test right from the app. With that code and the HTML file, you would just take those to your service provider like MailChimp or Constant Contact, and then you can send it with those marketing providers. This is a pretty heavy-duty tool, man, for crafting your emails and newsletters. I even do some invoicing through it. You know that it's always going to look nice for the end user. You can tweak this thing for days, adding more breakpoints. If you think your specific layout requires it. The full layout could be adjusted if needed. It really just kind of depends on how you're feeling. If you ever need help, if you click on that help dialog at the top, you can access the community forums where people are super helpful, and also get access to the helpful tips. Well, I hope you seeing how my workflow generally goes will help you with your campaigns. We'd really like to see what you're building. Be sure to let us know how you're enjoying it. Have a great day.